What's up, Wall fans, common sensors, and of course, podcast consumers? Welcome to another very exciting episode of Go Tell It to the Wall. This one's actually not a Common Sense Sundays. It is a Monday, and instead of doing a Common Sense Sunday on a Monday, we're switching back to the old counter. They're all very similar. Anyway, welcome to the live feed for episode 131 of Go Tell It to the Wall podcast. Wadcast? Wallcast. Maybe we'll just we make up words around here. Anyway, we got a lot of good stuff to get into to finish off this long weekend for those of you that are residing in the U.S. So let's get right into episode 131.
One, two, three, go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall. Go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall.
All right, Wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, welcome to episode 131 of Go Tell It to the Wall podcast. That's right, we're switching it up like we do from time to time because it's not Sunday. I know last episode we did a Common Sense Sunday on Monday. And the last time we did a regularly numbered episode, I guess you could say, was our holiday special. I also wanted to push it off because we are approaching, well, not approaching, but the next time we do a Common Sense Sunday, it's going to be episode 100. Despite the fact that overall we have done, I looked at it earlier, like 237 episodes or something like that over the past, 6 years. Oh, how do I continue to torture myself like this? You know how I do it? Because I can torture all of you out there that listen. Anyway, so like I said, episode 131 of Go Tell It to the Wall podcast. It is the long weekend, so we're doing it on Monday since I was able to commandeer my studio back for the day because my wife was not actually needing it for her work today, which is the usual case on a Monday. That's why we moved everything to Sundays during COVID. Anyway, before we get into the meat of the episode, we always kick things off with our social plugs. You can keep up with us during episodes, after episodes, for episodes, whenever you so please, and you do that in multiple locations. One of those would be facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's right, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Also, our YouTube channel. Head on over to youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's right, youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. You got to kind of just put in Go Tell It to the Wall, but we have these custom URLs, so I'm going to use them. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Check out all of our videos that get posted up there. Not only episode videos, but beer reviews, parenting clips, mental health Mondays, all kinds of great stuff over there on the YouTube channel. And of course, don't forget my own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean, at SoCalSean, right there on Instagram. Not everything Go Tell It to the Wall specific, but all kinds of great photo content up there, a lot of which we talk about on some of the episodes, depending on the photo content. So make sure you're following on Instagram if you are an Instagram user. And I will tell you, if you're someone that listens to podcasts and your profile looks very spammy I do tend to follow back, but if your profile looks very spammy, or you're literally just trying to get me to sign up for your spicy photos, which is fine, do you? You're not going to get a follow back from me. But you're welcome to follow and still check out my photos that get posted up there. And of course, don't forget your one-stop shop for anything and everything that is Go Tell It to the Wall, and that would be SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's right, SeanO'RourkeLive.com is our official website. You're going to find all kinds of content up there that you don't find on those other social platforms. You also find links to those social platforms. So despite the fact that we have custom URLs, you don't even need to remember them. You just got to remember SeanO'RourkeLive.com. And in addition to all those things, you're also going to find a link to our Patreon campaign. If you're not familiar with Patreon, please check it out. Even if you're not going to support us, there's probably an artist, musician, broadcaster out there that you do want to support. And again, if you don't want to do that, but you want to support us, you can pick up some Common Sense merch. Our merch website links directly from SeanO'RourkeLive.com. So make sure you're checking that out and getting some Common Sense merch. Like I said, it is Monday. It is not Sunday. This is episode 131, and it is President's Day. It's been madness here around my house. 3-day weekends, you always think they're going to be fun and don't got to get the kid up as early for school. But, man, you hit a point where you're like, oh, can we go back to school already here? But nonetheless, it is Monday. It's President's Day. Hopefully, those of you that are in the U.S. Are enjoying the longer weekend. This is kind of one of those funky ones because it's like middle of February. It's like, what are you going to do? I mean, you can take trips. I know a lot of people go to mountains like here around Southern California, stuff like that. But if you're able to do that, you got to get those reservations in pretty quick. So it is kind of one of those middle of February. You're like, okay, oh yeah, 3-day weekend. And here we are with President's Day. All right, let's get into some digital trends. Oh, Elon. Elon. He just, more of his craziness. It feels like almost daily he is just unhinged. And the funny thing I noticed, excuse me, wall fans, I have my voice back from last episode, but it's once again not fully there, and we'll get into reasons for that in entertainment news. We're hitting the gauntlet here, wall fans. I'm not going to have the greatest voice throughout the spring because it's showtime, and I'm constantly out and about and talking and yelling and singing and all kinds of things. So just get used to the little raspier voice over the next couple months. But Elon Musk, I've noticed over the past couple weeks, actually, especially like the last week, I don't engage on Twitter very much. I'll like some tweets or whatever, but I kind of get news and information from it. That's my primary use of Twitter. A lot of these digital trends that we talk about is Twitter. I noticed over the past couple weeks, but like I said, especially the past week, I was suddenly getting the little pop-up notifications from Elon Musk. You get those if you use Twitter, and I get them occasionally from an account that I don't follow. I don't even follow a ton of accounts. But it happened the past week where every day I was getting multiple pop-up notifications for Elon Musk's tweets. I don't follow Elon Musk. I never have. I have no interest in following Elon Musk. In fact, here's a cool little trick that somebody actually posted, and it was a good point the other day. A lot of people follow Elon Musk, and a lot of people would do this with the Orange Menace. They're not actually supporting Elon Musk or the Orange Menace, and I'm sure there's lots of, people probably do it with Biden. If they hate Biden, maybe they're following him, whatever it might be. And it's to see the unhingedness that is Elon Musk. But here's the thing. Whenever something crazy is tweeted out from his account, other people are sharing it anyway, so you're going to see it. And they end up screenshotting it most of the time because a lot of times it gets deleted. So you're going to see that stuff anyway. But I was really just sick of getting these notifications. Especially having never even followed Elon Musk. So I don't know if any of you out there have noticed that. If you don't actually follow him, if you're getting those notifications, it's crazy. It's like the guy spent billions of dollars to have essentially a bullhorn on a street corner, and he's like one of those crazy son of a bitches that's just out there yelling conspiracy theories. That's what we get with Elon Musk nowadays. In fact, he is further breaking Twitter, which brings me to my next trend on the digital platforms here, specifically Twitter. But there's been a lot of talk of this happening on additional social sites, so we'll see how far-reaching this becomes. And that is Twitter removing two-factor authentication. For those of you that aren't... Oh boy, there we go. It's the dry weather here too, Wall fans. Apologies for that. But for those of you who are not aware of two-factor authentication, this is an extra security measure to secure your account on social platforms, and a lot of it involves text messaging confirmation. I've had this before where somebody was trying to hack my Facebook account. I got a text message that said someone's trying to log into your Facebook account, and nobody actually got in. I went in, changed the password, whatever else, and it's like, all right, can't get in there. It's a useful tool when you want to protect your social media accounts, especially if you are somebody of note who can have your account hacked all of a sudden, and tweets that are not yours are getting sent out by some hacker. So Elon Musk has decided that they are going to remove this in March, and the only way to get two-factor authentication back on Twitter for your account is to pay for the blue check mark. So this is yet another example of Elon trying to get more and more people to pay for that fake little blue check mark. I think we're going to see more people leaving Twitter than already were leaving, because obviously it's literally less secure. You can't trust anything on your account. And I actually took a moment last night. I was like, you know what, I'm so done. And I want to continue to scroll Twitter. I don't care to post anything. I don't need to post anything. This podcast has a Twitter account. We don't even promote it because we haven't used it in years. It just sits there. We get a follow once in a while. I think someone will be scrolling through and they're like, oh, I listen to that podcast. And we don't use it. I use my personal one, usually to gather information, the occasional retweet. Like, that's maybe once every other month, and like a couple likes a month, I would say. So what I did last night, I was like, I'm done. But I don't want to delete my account, so I scrubbed all my information on my profile, including my header photo. You can just take your header photo down. I did the same thing for the Go Tell Us the Wall account, which we may just end up deleting. I don't know. But I did the same thing for the Go Tell Us the Wall account. So still the accounts, all the information is off of there. No website attached anymore, no birth date on my own personal, none of that stuff. I said, that's enough. The interesting thing I noticed as I was doing this is I was like, you know what, I'm just going to remove my profile photo. So I go to click on the profile photo, and you can't actually just remove your profile photo. Now, you could change it, and you could change it to like a blank circle or something, just use a black square that then becomes your profile picture or color or whatever it is. You can do that, but I noticed what you have to do in order to do that is grant Twitter access to your photos on your phone. So now if I'm scrubbing my information from Twitter for the purpose of not being out there as much, I guess you could say, why the hell would I want to give them access to my photos? And then so your three options are granting access to photos to choose another profile photo, granting access to camera, which means Twitter then has access to your camera, or you can post an NFT as your profile photo. But the interesting thing about the NFT is you have to have a blue check mark to post an NFT as your Twitter profile picture. So it's really a sneaky way for them to make it more difficult to just remove your photo. You can remove the header, but there's no option to just remove your profile photo. So we'll see how long this people are going to be leaving Twitter. I think more and more. I've seen it already. We're going to see more and more of it, especially it's like end of March sometime when the two-factor authentication goes away. So be ready for that. You may see a lot of people you follow on Twitter, their accounts just fully disappear because they're done with all the bullshit that's coming out of Elon Musk's mouth or out of his thumbs on his phone as he tweets ridiculous things on a daily basis through the company that he bought as, like I said, a glorified bullhorn while he's standing on a digital soapbox, I guess you could say. All right, I do want to say it is President's Day. It also happens to coincide with something, and here's the thing, Wall fans, I had no idea what this was until today. Something called Lundi Gras. Lundi Gras or Lundi Gras, I'm not sure which one it is, and you can guess what that has to do with because tomorrow is actually officially Mardi Gras, and it seems that this is something really just celebrated in New Orleans. And so they kind of go crazy on the weekend, and apparently it's only been around since 1987, which was funny because, and I was quite young at the time, but for those of you that aren't aware, I was at multiple Mardi Gras in the 80s as a child. Now, I wasn't running around catching beads so much, although I did end up with a lot of beads because people give the cute kid beads, but I'd be hanging out at the hotel while my mother's company was involved in the Mardi Gras mask designs. So I'd never heard of it. And apparently in 1987, they came up with this because the weekend prior to Mardi Gras, as well as Mardi Gras just wasn't enough. It used to kind of be the day to rest between the weekend and actual Mardi Gras. Now they're just like, nope, 4-day party going on down there in New Orleans. So happy Lundi Gras to those of you that celebrate. And just for those of you that aren't aware, Lent begins on Wednesday. So you are going to see more and more fish options popping up from your fast food restaurants in your area. You're going to see those commercials and stuff like that. That's a funny thing. I usually kind of know when Lent is coming. I come from a Catholic family, despite the fact that I don't participate in Lent or anything like that. But you can always tell because the commercials start ramping up. Suddenly, McDonald's, instead of wanting to sell you quarter pounders, they want to sell you fish fillets. Popeyes has a couple of fish options. All the rest of it, suddenly you're like, oh, nope, the fish sandwiches are back. Lent must be coming up. And the reason for that is, for those of you not familiar, Catholics cannot eat meat on Fridays. They are allowed to eat fish, but you cannot eat meat on Fridays. So I grew up not eating meat on Fridays. I am not a big filet of fish fan, but occasionally when I was younger, that was the option because, my parents are working and it's like, we can't eat meat tonight. Just pick up some fast food, pick up the filet of fishes, And then, of course, the Mexican restaurant, I would get bean and cheese burritos. I mean, to me, that was always the better option when I couldn't eat meat as opposed to a filet of fish from McDonald's. But sometimes you got to just eat what you got, All right. Marge. Oh, Marge. This is from today, actually. The irony of this being tweeted on President's Day. And I'm going to paraphrase. I'm not going to give you the exact tweet. But Marge, good old Marge down there in Georgia, MTG, she tweeted out calling for and I quote, national divorce. She was saying that the red states need to divorce themselves from the blue states and become a different country. She basically tweeted out that we need to secede, or that the red states need to secede from the United States of America, from the Constitution, and all this other bullshit that goes with it. And of course, then civil war started to trend on Twitter because people were like, we did this. And on top of that, Marge, you actually took an oath to protect the Constitution. You may be from a specific state, but you took up an oath to protect the Constitution. Another thing that people brought up is, how are we figuring this out? Do we go by the presidential election? Do we have a new election in each state to decide if they are a red or a blue state? Because if we're going by presidential elections, I hate to break this to you, Marge, but Georgia actually is a blue state based on the last presidential election. So good luck with that. Good luck with your little civil war. But it's just amazing to me that we let this unhinged, crazy bitch. I don't like to use that word. She is a crazy bitch, and she needs to be stopped. But everyone just sits back and laughs. Ah, ha, ha, ha. Oh, it's all fun and games until we get another insurrection incited by some of these crazy politicians. So Marge, calm the fuck down. Sit there, do your job, and then hopefully we won't have to deal with you again 2 years from now or whenever she's up for election again. I have no idea when. I think she just got reelected, so we got at least another 2 years or whatever that term is. I'm not a political guy. We don't get political here. We just use common sense, and common sense says you shouldn't call for secession from the United States of America. Here's another interesting fact that I think a lot of people aren't aware of, and if you're not, I'm going to point it out for you. Red states, this is a fact. You can look it up. Red states actually receive more federal funding on average than blue states. At the same time, most of those red states pay less into the federal funding than blue states. So if you want to secede, no more federal funding there, Marge. Keep that in mind. All right, a couple more digital trends here, and we're going to move on. Hashtag signs you are outdated. This is currently trending on a couple of the social platforms right there. Again, hashtag signs you are outdated. For me, this is an easy one. I see them on a daily basis because you see a lot of those posts that are like, age yourself by a shopping store that doesn't exist anymore. Age yourself by a musician you've seen live. And I see these all the time, and it's clearly reminds me that I am on the higher end of the age group that utilizes social platforms, especially Twitter, because everyone always tweets stuff out, and they're like, "Oh, I remember this from when I was a kid," and I half the time I'm like, "Oh, I was an adult going there," so that makes me feel quite old. It's always stuff from my adulthood. It rarely isn't, you know. In fact, there was one, a sports personality actually tweeted out something about being old enough to remember Hoobastank. And then for those of you that are familiar with Hoobastank, he actually was like, well, the reason was such a popular song when I was in elementary or middle school or something like that. And I'm going, the reason came out when I was in college. So this is one of those where I very rarely respond to a tweet, but I said, yes, but are you old enough to remember Hoobastank with a saxophone player? Because, Wall fans, I am in fact old enough to have seen Hoobastank when they had a saxophone player, which ended in like 2001 maybe. I don't know. I didn't Google the exact date, but I remember seeing Hoobastank, saxophone player, signing up for a mailing list, and this is when email is like barely used much. Couple months later, getting an email from the saxophone player saying he's leaving Hoobastank, and then suddenly Hoobastank turned into Hoobastank, what they are known as today, and how they became very popular in the early 2000s. So anyway, hashtag signs you are outdated. Anytime I open a social platform. All right. Also, for those of you that aren't aware, today is hashtag National Love Your Pet Day. I have a feeling we actually recorded on this day last year or around that date when it was trending. And I remember saying, I currently don't have a pet. But I do want to reminisce for a minute for those of you that haven't been listeners from the beginning. There was a time in the infancy of this podcast, really the first year, where there was always a cat in the studio. Not only this studio, but the original studio and the tiny little corner studio, like corner of a room studio that we had when Go Tell It to the Wall was first launched. That was Figment. And unfortunately, she passed away a little less than a year into the Go Tell It to the Wall podcast, and she does, her ashes actually still sit on the desk, and they have ever since we got her ashes back from the place that took care of all that. Now, we actually do have a pet again. I have talked about Falcor, the dog, not the dragon, although he does look a little bit like the Good Luck Dragon from Neverending Story. So share your pet photos and how much you love your pet with that hashtag National Love Your Pet Day. I mean, you should be loving your pet every day. Although if you have a pet, especially a needy one, I got a real neat. You would think that my dog Never gets any attention. When in fact, he gets constant attention. If anybody is home at our house, he is getting attention. He's all up in anyone's business. He's getting attention. The only time that he's really left to his own devices is if we have to all leave, my wife and kid, to go like run errands or something. And so he's, he'll get like an hour or two alone. Outside of that, this dog's constantly getting pets and playing and everything else, but it's never enough. I have one of the neediest dogs on the face of the earth. I grew up with dogs. I've never had a dog quite this needy. And I swear, people come over and I'm like, I promise this dog is not neglected at all. He just cannot get enough attention. He's just, anybody comes in, he's going to growl at him at first, and he's going to be like, oh, you're someone that can pet me. And then that's what he's going to do, is get up all in their business too, which is what I do. I get pushed off the bed nightly by a 23-pound dog, and like, it's not even a big dog, and I'm getting pushed off the bed. Then the 6-year-old gets in the bed, and it's like, all right, I guess I'll go sleep on the couch now. Thinking about putting a bigger bed in here. I have this like couch futon thing, but it's not very comfortable or big. So I'm thinking about putting like maybe a little pull-out sofa in here. Maybe I can make the dog sleep in here. Who knows? We'll see how that goes. Anyway, # National Love Your Pet Day. I've always wanted to have a funky pet too. I tried to convince my wife and daughter to get one of those bearded dragons before we got a dog. I love dogs. I just didn't want the responsibility of a dog. That's why I had a cat when I was single. Because I could leave for a weekend, and I didn't even really have to have my roommates do anything. I was just like, I piled the cat up with food and water. She's good. She'll be fine for a while. With a dog, you can't do that. Like, you just make sure clean cat litter, food and water. They're good for like 3 days at least. Dog, no. Dog's a couple hours, and then they got to go out. You got to, all kinds of stuff. You can overfeed a dog. You can't just leave a pile of food because they will eat themselves, sick. It's just, it's a whole thing. I do love my dog. Don't get me wrong. Prior to getting the dog, I was a little apprehensive because I remember saying, so you're going to do all the cleanup? And yep. Well, now I do most of that. So that's just how it ends up. All right, let's talk some mental health. I don't have a lot to get into today, but I do want to talk about something topical, something recent. And you might have seen the news about this already, but yesterday at Disneyland, they had an apparent suicide. Somebody jumped from one of the top levels of the parking structure there. For those of you who've never been to Disneyland, there's multiple parking lots around, but there's one big structure. They call it the Mickey and Friends structure, and it's multi-leveled. So it goes, I want to say 4 or 5 levels up. I've been there so many times, I couldn't tell you how many levels. But it's a tall structure, and somebody apparently, the news we're getting now, they are obviously still investigating, is that somebody jumped off of there as an attempt and success at suicide. The crazy thing is, we actually had this come up a few months ago. I can't remember the exact month or date, but somebody else had done the same thing at Disneyland, had unfortunately committed suicide. This can be traumatizing for families and kids. So I want to kind of come at this from 2 angles. Suicide is never a good idea. Obviously, there have been instances of assisted suicide where somebody is in immense pain, but no one should ever have to turn to suicide because of mental illness or mental health problems. That's why we talk about these things on Go Tell It to the Wall. Why I have, for most of all of my adult life, have been a proponent of mental health awareness, mental illness awareness. So putting that aside, that there's never an excuse for it. If, God forbid, you have to do something like this, people often say suicide is the selfish way to go, because you leave your family with questions, you leave your friends with questions, all these other kinds of things. I've been fortunate enough where I've had acquaintances, people that I knew tangentially, I don't know. Why do I try to use big words? Friends of friends, stuff like that. But I've never had a close friend or close family commit suicide, fortunately for me. But so that, they say it's the most selfish thing. The way to make it more selfish is to traumatize families and kids. This is supposedly the happiest place on earth. I still argue whether it's the happiest place on earth because they did remove smoking from in there, and despite the fact that I'm no longer a full-time smoker, for smokers, it's not the happiest place on earth for them. But I digress. It's the happiest place on earth. There are kids everywhere. And from my understanding, this didn't happen like after hours, at night. It seems like this happened during the day at Disneyland. So people saw this. This was not unnoticed. So if, God forbid, you are going to do this, don't make it even worse than it is, worse on other people, worse on people that don't even know you by doing it right in front of them. And remember, there's so many resources out there. That's why I want to talk about this from a mental health standpoint, and I'm going to kind of leave it alone because I'm by no means an expert on suicide prevention or anything else. There's plenty of other resources out there. I've talked about them multiple times. You have Punk Rock Saves Lives Mental Health. There are telehealth options. There are lots of nonprofit organizations that you can reach out to for help. And there's also the National Suicide Hotline here in the United States. Now, I know other countries have something similar. Here in the United States, you dial 988, and you will get professional help right away if you are considering self-harm, suicide, anything like that. So keep that in mind. And also, check in on your friends and family. Don't call and be like, hey, you doing okay? You thinking about... No, not that. And I'm not even saying there's always signs. But when you talk, you might not even know it, and you might brighten someone's day, someone that's down, and you're helping to bring them back up. Talk to your friends and family. Check in. Remind people of those resources. Like I said, I know there's other like in Canada, they have Bell Let's Talk, and it's a whole mental health initiative that they do. It's annually, but I know they have resources. It's once a day annually, but I know they have resources obviously throughout the year. And I'm sure other countries have the same thing. I just don't have those in front of me. I know we have listeners in multiple countries, but like I said, here in the U.S., dial 988, and you will get professional help there. And no one should ever feel that there's not another option. Again, I am one of those people that is in favor. If you are dying and you are so sick and in so much pain, there is a big difference between assisted suicide and taking your own life when there are resources out there. And by no means am I saying mental illness is not painful, but I'm talking about people who have exhausted all of their medical options and there's nothing else they can do except suffer. People with mental illness like myself, or even with much worse mental illness, there's always going to be resources out there for you. And we live in a much better world today than we did 20 years ago, where it was just a stigma and you couldn't talk about it at all. So keep those things in mind. And that's why we continue to talk about these things. That's why we're open here at Go Tell It to the Wall. And, if anybody ever needs help finding resources or just kind of a digital shoulder to cry on, you can always reach out to us through SeanO'RourkeLive.com or through Facebook, through the Facebook page. And I'll say it again, remember, there are admins on the Facebook page. Nobody else sees emails from the website. They do sometimes, but they all come directly to me first. So you can message me straight through SeanO'RourkeLive.com, and I will do everything within my knowledge and power to help you out and get you connected with the proper resources, because that should never be an option. And we need to continue to fight this battle. And despite the fact that we are so much better now than we were 20 years ago, I want us to be even better 20 years from now. And I know we can get there. All right, we got some positive news. Positive news. This is an organization that apparently has been around for a little while, and I just recently found out about them. They are the Food Recovery Network. And the reason this came up recently is the Super Bowl was last Sunday. And they worked with Super Bowl officials, probably not Super Bowl officials, I guess, but the food vendors there in Arizona where the Super Bowl was held to prevent any kind of food waste from happening at the Super Bowl. And I've actually saw some quotes from people that do the food planning for these large events who have said it's such a stress because you're trying to get that exact number and not waste any food. And you're either going to run out of food or you're going to have extra. That's just everybody knows how this is. Anybody, let alone, I'm not even talking people that are preparing food for, 100,000 people, like over a Super Bowl weekend. If you've had a party with 10 people, it's hard. You don't know exactly, That's where the beer run came in. Like, somebody go on a beer run, we're out of beer, You always end up with leftovers from a party. So I think this is absolutely fantastic. They work nationally to avoid all food waste. And with that being in Arizona, all that food was going to like the Phoenix Food Bank or one of those organizations. And apparently they did it last year when the Super Bowl was here in Los Angeles. And all that went to like the Los Angeles Food Bank. So again, Food Recovery Network, or FRN, is working diligently to avoid food waste in the United States of America. And apparently there are thousands of pounds of food left over from the Super Bowl. Because this is not only food that's like in the stadium, but they do big tailgate events outside with like professional chefs, gourmet food and stuff. So they take all those leftovers in refrigerated trucks and make sure they get repurposed so it's not wasted. And the statistic that they have on their website is apparently 40%, almost half of food is wasted in the United States of America. 40%. Can you imagine? And this is all while there's people out there going hungry. So good on you, Food Recovery Network, doing the great work of not only eliminating food waste, but making sure that food gets to people that are in need of food and would be going hungry without organizations like this. So give them your support. I'm really glad I found this, and this is absolutely a very positive organization that I hope can continue doing good work moving forward. And they don't just do the Super Bowls. It's nationally. They work with colleges that, so you're talking cafeterias, at college campuses and all kinds of stuff like that. They're working nationally on all these kind of large events and large food situations to avoid that food waste. All right, let's talk some parenting. We're going to be a little fire, usually the parenting's a little light. I got some funny stories. We're going to be a little fire and brimstone. That's overstating it a little, but I want to talk about some parenting stuff that has made me angry. Not in my own life necessarily, but stories from a parenting standpoint that have come up over the past week or so. So let's get into some of that. I'm choking on my water here. Yes, for those of you who watch the video feed, it's not coffee. It's straight vodka. No, it's not. It's. I don't even like vodka. I think I've made that joke before. I don't even like vodka. It is just water in my Go Tell to the Wall mug. It's just to promote the Go Tell to the Wall mug. You too can get one of these on our merch website, which links directly from SeanO'RourkeLive.com. You can't get this one. This is a Stupid Rad special order, Stupid Rad merch company, but there are mug options available on there, and you can drink straight vodka yourself while you're listening to the soothing sound of Go Tell to the Wall. I've always said the more you drink, the more entertaining I am. So and that's why we do the write-ups for episodes. So I was like, pour a tasty drink. I sound better when you've had a drink or two. I mean, honestly, it does. I think that's the case for a lot of people. I'm not condoning heavy drinking by any means, but much like comedy clubs, it gets a little better if you have a little drink there. Not that I'm near as good as probably better than some comedians out there, but not most of them. All right, now that we've gotten on a little tangent there, gotten off the rails, let's talk parenting. So there's a pregnant TikToker who went viral very recently. And the reason she did is she has been vaping, nicotine vaping, while pregnant. And apparently it came out that she, and I can't remember if she had actually smoked or was vaping. She was a smoker, and I think still is, claims that her doctor said, well, if you must smoke, vape instead of smoking. Oh, Lord. But her doctor did say, still not good for the baby. And in fact, just to give you a couple little factual tidbits from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, it says even minimal nicotine use, whether it's cigarette, and they do say vaping is potentially, finger quote, better, but any kind of nicotine consumption while pregnant can hinder the organ development of your baby. To me, this is a form of child abuse. In fact, in California, I don't know if this is the case in every state, you're literally not allowed to smoke in a car with a child. You can get a ticket for that. It is not allowed with a child. So you shouldn't be allowed to smoke while you're pregnant with a child when we know what we know. Now, I'm not going to sit here and criticize, my grandmother's generation or even my parents' generation when they didn't know. You would go in for your checkup as a pregnant woman and the doctor's smoking in the exam room. But we know better now. We know better. And trust me, as somebody who was a full-time smoker and then had to move to vaping and still uses nicotine lozenges from time to time to help with those nicotine cravings, I get it. But you have to consider that your child is so much more important than your cravings for nicotine. And I'll tell you, I actually had years ago when I lived in the Valley, I lived in an apartment building. I had a neighbor who was pregnant and was smoking. And it pissed me off every time. And this wasn't like I, saw her once smoking. Oh, God, no. Like daily, I'd come home from work and be like, there she is sitting there smoking again, pregnant. That is child abuse. And we need to call it out every time. Here's the thing. If you don't want to quit smoking, don't get pregnant. Simple as that. And hopefully, if you don't want to quit smoking and get pregnant, you do live in a state like California where women have rights over their own health and their own bodies. But either way, you're hurting your child. There's nothing more important to a parent, and any parent out there will tell you the same thing. Nothing is more important than the health of their children, health and safety of their children. But apparently to this mother, there are other priorities she has, such as abusing her unborn child. All right. Speaking of bad mothers, told you this was going to be one of those. We got a story from a Dunkin' Donuts. A Dunkin' Donuts employee kind of shared this, and there was mostly support, but there were some people that were like, well, no, let me break this down. Apparently, a mother came through the drive-thru at a Dunkin' Donuts, had a child in the back seat, hopefully in a car seat, and asked it, because this was a young child, not a teenager. And apparently the child wanted a chocolate glazed donut from Dunkin' Donuts. Tasty donut for those of you that have been to Dunkin' Donuts. One of my favorites. But wanted the chocolate glazed donut. Dunkin' Donuts was out of the chocolate glazed donut. The employee actually offered the chocolate glazed like donut holes. I think Dunkin' calls them something different, but nope. So the child then proceeded to throw a fit. Okay. Now, any parent out there, especially if you still have young ones, you still remember, they're going to throw a fit sometimes. I think I told a story when my wife went to pick up some Popeyes one night, took my daughter with, and they were out of mac and cheese. And my daughter said, that's crazy. Let's call the police. My wife wasn't like, yes, let's call the police. Nobody threw a fit. It was more of a comedic like, oh, no, this 4-year-old doesn't understand that you don't call the police because somebody's out of mac and cheese. It was more comedic. So the kid throws a fit, which I get. That's one thing. But then the mother proceeds to berate the worker at Dunkin' Donuts as if it is her fault that her child can't get a chocolate glazed donut from Dunkin' Donuts. This actually reminds me of the whole controversy with Jennifer Lopez. Was it Jennifer Lopez? I believe it was Jennifer Lopez years ago. Went into a Target, happened to be my Target here in Eagle Rock, which is near where I live. And they don't sell hot dogs there. And got very upset that Target didn't sell hot dogs because her kid needed a hot dog. It's like, okay, if they sell hot dogs uncooked, just go buy a hot dog and take it home and cook it for your kid instead of throwing a fucking fit. But here we go. This woman throws a fit. We have Karens raising Karens at this point. That's essentially what we're looking at. Now, the good thing is you read through most of the comments, and this is one specifically stuck out to me. Well, two, actually. There was one that I believe was referring to Tim Hortons. I've never been to Tim Hortons, but the popular Canadian chain there, and said their places often run out of things. So I tell my kids, all right, which one do you want? And then what's your backup? Donut or whatever. And then there was the other one that said, where they were out of something at a fast food restaurant, and a parent was like, oh, and I think this might have been a fast food worker, and the worker was like, I'm so sorry we're out of this, because the kid starts throwing a fit. And the mother or father was like, it's not your fault. They're going to throw a fit. That's what kids do. And so instead of escalating the situation, let's be logical here, and let's all teach our kids better. There is literally a saying, I think it's from Daniel Tiger. They use it in my kid's school. And it's like, and it seems a little harsh, but it's, you get what you get and you don't complain. It's one of these like, I want the purple cupcake, not the red cupcake. It's like, well, you know what? We're out of the purple cupcake. You're going to have the red cupcake. You don't want the red cupcake? Then don't have a cupcake. It's not in a mean way. It's just kids need to be raised to understand you're not always going to get your way. And here's a mom that's like teaching her kid, nope, you should throw a fit until you get your way, and I'm going to throw a fit with you. Holy crap. Blows my mind that parents do this. All right, one more thing here. Jesus Christ. I told you. I want to put this in parenting because the irony is just dripping with irony. I wasn't even aware of this organization until the past week or so. There's apparently an organization called Moms for Liberty. They are... I can't even say it without laughing. And you're going to understand why if you've never heard of this organization. Moms for Liberty, their mission is to protect children in schools and blah, 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 a bunch of bullshit that I just couldn't even get all the way through. And I was like, okay, let me understand So the primary focus of this organization lately, I believe it was started in, of all places, you guessed it, Florida. The main objective of this organization lately has been supporting the banned books that have been happening in multiple states, specifically in Florida, where it's really been a hot button issue. And so the irony of that name, Moms for Liberty. Do we all understand what liberty means? It means you have freedoms. So instead of saying parents should have the liberty to raise their children the way they want to, obviously within reason, don't raise them to be, throw fits, don't smoke cigarettes while you're pregnant. Yeah, not that. The choices of what your children read, that's liberty. So these Moms for Liberty are keeping other parents and kids from the liberty of reading the books that they want to read. And in fact, if you have kids, I don't know how old the book is, but there's a good chance you read this. My kids got it in her room. In Florida right now, they are currently reviewing. I don't think it's officially banned yet, but teachers had, and this is like kindergarten teachers, had to pull a book called Boom Chicka Boom off the shelf. And you might be, oh, what? That sounds like it's weird. No, Boom Chicka Boom is literally a short book about the alphabet, helping children to learn the alphabet, uppercase and lowercase letters. That's literally all it is. The letters climb a tree. That's the only thing I can think of. They don't want kids climbing trees. But again, the irony of that one, because we're talking about this book being banned in a state where children can shoot guns, but God forbid they read a book about letters climbing a tree. That's how ridiculous it's gotten down there in Florida. And fuck you, Moms for Liberty, and your stupid irony for all the bullshit that you're peddling across people and thinking, oh, we're for freedom and all this and blah, blah, blah. Shut the fuck up, sit down, and knock off the bullshit. Oh, my God. See, I told you, we're done with parenting. I didn't even want to put the fun stuff in there this week. I'm just going through. I'm like, what? Wait, what? What is going on here? Moms for Liberty, my ass. All right, let's talk a little bit of common sense. We're going to talk about a sports figure here for a moment, but I don't want anyone to focus on the fact that he is a sports figure. In fact, even if you are not into sports, you have probably heard this name. There's a basketball player that used to play for the Utah Jazz. He played his entire career there. Oh, no, take that back. He did leave for a minute and came to play in L.A., but played the majority of his career in Utah. His name is Karl Malone. Apparently, like 40 years ago, when he was a 20-year-old in college, he impregnated a 13-year-old girl. 13. He was in college. 13. This came to light because he made an appearance at the All-Star game in Utah over the weekend. But it utterly blew my mind because I know who Karl Malone is. I watched Karl Malone play when I was younger, even into my adulthood, I think. Yeah, I mean, he's been like retired maybe 10, 15 years. I watched him as an adult. I mean, I wasn't a fan, but, this information never came to light. Never. I don't understand how this wasn't made more widely known, especially in the world we live in. And this isn't even one of those where you can say, oh, boys will be boys. 13 years old. And it's not even a fact that he refutes. It's not even like he's like, no, I'm not guilty. It's a well-known, documented fact. He impregnated a 13-year-old girl. And I need to understand why this wasn't more widely known. Why? Nothing against Utah, but I could see, of all places, why Utah maybe is able to support something like that, because, we have child marriages and the history of that, and nothing. I have great friends that live in Utah. I'm not saying the entire state, but I'm saying that, that does occur there more than elsewhere. But for this just to be swept, I don't, and obviously, it was knowledge, but it's just, how is this something that I went 40 years without ever learning? I had no idea until this past weekend. Shout out to Bomani Jones for kind of pointing it out to everyone. And it was funny because he's doing like a live radio thing, and everyone in the crowd's like, oh, what? So like nobody, I mean, people knew, obviously, but nobody knew. There's no excuse for that behavior. This man should never be celebrated. He was 20. He knew better. 13. That is absolutely disgusting. All right, Vanderbilt University, down there in Georgia, Nothing against Vanderbilt. I've heard it's a fine institution. Of course, it's in Georgia. I believe it's in Georgia. I can't even remember. I thought, well, you know what? Nobody quote me on that. Not the point of this. But Vanderbilt University, they sent out an email after the shooting that occurred at Michigan State University, where I believe 3 people passed away, and they still have multiple people in critical condition. So they sent out an email supporting, like, obviously not supporting the shooting. How am I going to say this? Offering support to students and how they all need to come together and everything else. And, well, then it was pointed out, probably by a couple students that were like, wait a minute, that Vanderbilt University administration actually used the chat, whichever one of the AI things. They used AI to write this supposedly compassionate email to the students to make them feel safer. So that administration couldn't take 10 minutes to write an actual email. Instead, they used AI. Now, most of you out there know how I feel about AI. There are instances where it's fine. I do kind of use it almost on a daily basis because I have Google speakers in certain areas of my house, and I can ask it to play certain things with that phrase, you know. But we are getting absolutely out of hand now with the Chat GP, I think is the one they used. We're getting absolutely out of hand with this stuff. Artists are getting undermined. My favorite one, though, is, and this is so typical because everyone's like, oh, AI is great. It's going to replace all these things. And apparently some organization came out and said, well, AI could never be a preacher because you can never, and this is not just preachers, not defending any other kind of creative organization or anything. Well, preachers, they could never be replaced by AI because you can't have the same passion. No shit, that's what all these artists have been saying now for months with all the stupid AI art and, you know, AI emails, everything else. No soul. So it's the same for all of it. So speak out about all of it. We need to slow down on the fucking AI because I can't anymore with this. 10 minutes to send a compassionate email. But nope, couldn't be bothered to do that because AI is here to do it for us. All right, TikTok fast food worker tips. So there's a fast food worker. I don't think he said specifically what fast food restaurant he worked at, but he had been a fast food worker for 15 years, and he shared his top 2 tips for customers who are ordering fast food. And I put this in common sense because it absolutely makes sense to me. One of the first tips was have your payment ready. When everyone's been to a drive-thru. You order at the speaker, you come around, you're going to pick up at the window. Have your payment ready. In fact, I've noticed signs at certain fast food places like, please have your payment ready when you get to the window. And the reason for this is the person working the drive-thru window is also taking orders, they're taking money, they're handing out food, they're cleaning things, they're doing multiple things at once. So if they have to stand there and watch you fiddle for your wallet, especially for God's sake, I say for God's sake, I rarely use cash anymore, especially at a fast food job. I'm like, just take the card. What was it total? Fine, just put it, whatever it is, take the card. Well, you have the card out. And I will say it was pointed out by somebody that commented on this, and they said, well, that's crazy. What do you want me digging in my wallet as I turn around the corner from the drive-thru speaker to the window? And it's like, no, you're going to be stopped by another car anyway. So you do it then while you're stopped waiting to get to the window. And then you can say, well, what if there isn't a car? Most likely there's going to be a car. But if there isn't another car in front of you, then you can take that extra second. And this is just coming from me, just from a common sense standpoint. If there's not a bunch of cars in the drive-thru, then yeah, an extra second to pull your card out, extra couple seconds to pull your card out, is not a big deal. But just be prepared to do this. Now, the other thing that he pointed out, which also makes sense to me, with a slight caveat, is he said, please don't let your toddler order from the drive-thru menu themselves. First of all, most toddlers can't read. They don't understand what combo number 3 is, which you could say, well, no, you need to give kids independence to order. Yes, here's the trick. I have a 6-year-old. We've gone through drive-thrus before. You ask them beforehand. You give them the options. They still get to choose, but then you're not rolling down a back window and saying, oh, hey, Johnny, why don't you order whatever combo you want there? And they're like, blah, 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 blah. You ever been around a toddler? They are balls of chaos. It's just what they are. So, yes, give your kid the independence, but don't sit there holding up a drive-thru, because your 3-year-old is trying to figure out what they want to order. Have that conversation as you're driving to the fast food restaurant. It's pretty easy to do. And just pull the damn wallet out. There's always cars. Pull your wallet out. Honestly, when I'm ordering, I'm like pulling my wallet out of my pocket. I'm just ready. I'm like, boom, let's do this. You know, now you can pay with your phone everywhere. It's like so much easier. Anyway, I love California. You know, and there's a lot of people, oh, California, all those liberal. No, I like that part of it. There are some things that drive me nuts. Starting this year, there's a law in California where you can no longer buy menthol cigarettes. I know we're talking about smoking yet again in this episode. I used to be a menthol smoker. I have multiple friends who are not even full-time smokers, but, you know, will have a pack of cigarettes here and there to smoke at shows. Now, I have a friend who is like me, will have an occasional cigarette or two at a show. You know, you're out having a couple drinks and hanging out, and that's the one thing I think I've mentioned this before is you say, well, you never see people smoking anymore. You never see people smoking anymore. Go to a punk show. Everybody's smoking. I have one on occasion. This friend of mine was a menthol smoker, specifically the Camel Crush. If you haven't heard of these, they're regular cigarettes, but then they have a little capsule in it in the filter that you can crush, and then it's a menthol cigarette. These have been around for a long time. I was never a regular smoker of them, but I was a menthol smoker, and I've had them. So apparently now in California, what they've done is they still have the Camel Crush. So my friend had not had one of these before, had a pack, said, all right, we got to try these. And I'm like, okay. So it's not menthol, but it still has a little crushy thing in there. So we both like crushed it. It felt a little different than it used to. Tried it out. No flavor whatsoever, just tasted like a regular cigarette. So somehow, I guess it's a psychological thing that people still want to crunch something. But it's like, why are we doing this? And that brings me to a point, like, you're really, when it comes to, I understand banning the, like, cotton candy flavored cigarettes or vapes, all that kind of stuff. But kids these days are not gravitating towards cigarettes. In fact, I was having this conversation when I was hanging outside. I wasn't even smoking myself last weekend at a show, and this guy, somehow it came up about menthol cigarettes, and he had to switch to regular cigarettes. And it reminded me when I was a kid, I started, oh my gosh, I became a full-time smoker like in college, but I was one of those bad kids at like 12 trying a cigarette here and there, and even as and even in high school, I had a party all a cigarette. But even going into college, I was not a menthol cigarette. In fact, I didn't like menthol cigarettes. I then eventually learned to like menthol cigarettes, and it became my preference, like when I was like in my 20s. So menthol cigarettes, honestly, they're not really a gateway cigarette. So essentially what California has done now is they have punished adults who smoke menthol cigarettes. And I don't even want to get into the specifics of certain races that have been marginalized by this because of the popularity, the stereotypical but truth behind some of those things. I don't want to get into all that, and kids these days vape. We need to come down much harder on the vaping than we do menthol cigarettes. And I will say a little trick I learned from someone that walked into a conversation we were having about menthol cigarettes. If you are in California and you need to get some menthol cigarettes, you can cross the state line. It's not that far of a drive to Nevada or Arizona. But we have these casinos here in California, which are technically on federal land, and they don't have to abide by that specific law because it's federal laws on that land, and you can actually find menthol cigarettes at those casinos. So if you're looking for them in California, either go across the state lines or maybe check out those certain casinos up and down the state of California. All right, one more thing here. Nope, couple more things. Never mind. Fox News emails. There's a lawsuit against Fox News by Dominion, the company that handled the presidential elections or in many of the states. You've all heard all this stuff and, the big lie and fake news and the election was stolen, all this other stuff. Well, some Fox News emails have come to light, and they were ones pushing the election interference narrative. They're probably still pushing it. I don't watch Fox News for obvious reasons. But because of this lawsuit, emails have come out. And these emails are between executives at Fox News as well as personalities at Fox News, i.e. Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, all these other idiot talking heads that are on Fox News, admitting that there was no election interference, but that they needed to continue pushing it so that they have the Orange Menace on their side. Once again, for those of you unaware, Fox News is bullshit. They have literally had to go into court and claim that they are not actually news because of the kind of reporting that they do. And here's another example. They were pushing this to millions of Americans who follow Fox News and listen to every word they say, despite the fact that they knew there was no evidence of any election interference whatsoever in the 2020 election. So Fox News, a hearty fuck you. And I keep seeing tweets because, OAN and Newsmax got removed from DirecTV or whatever. What's next, Fox News? And it's like, well, sure, it's not news. You're not taking away news. It's court documented. It's not news. All right, Idaho. Man, I feel bad for Idaho. I am Irish. I'm a big potato eater, so I can't talk to, I keep bringing up potatoes, but, there's a bill introduced there in Idaho recently. This bill is to ban, make it illegal. And you can be arrested if you administer it, ban any mRNA vaccines. Now, you might say, so they're just banning the COVID vaccine. This would include the COVID vaccine. It would include many other vaccines that fall under the mRNA tab of type of vaccine, including animal vaccines. So we could literally be looking at animal diseases coming back up because of Idaho. And here's the thing. I've said this from the beginning. I think it's utterly ridiculous if you're avoiding getting the COVID vaccine. But you know what? If you're avoiding getting it, that's your prerogative. To actively keep other people from getting vaccines is utter bullshit. And common sense says, fine, don't get the vaccine. Don't keep others from doing what they want. These are always the same people that say, our liberties are under attack and blah, blah, blah. But then they want to take away liberties. They want to take away women's health rights. They want to take away people's right to have vaccines and protect themselves. Give me a fucking break. And it's always fueled by misinformation. That's what it is. We have all these idiots on social platforms saying, sudden death and all this stuff. And it happened because, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the actor's name, but he just had an aneurysm. And then, of course, the conspiracy theorists come out of the woodworks, just like they did with Lisa Marie Presley. Sudden death. And it was Tom Sizemore. And people were like, that's what caused his aneurysm. He had to have the COVID shot. And it's like, well, yeah, no, the years of cocaine use and the recent crystal meth use, yeah, that had nothing to do with any kind of health problems that he had. Give me a break. Misinformation. All right, let's get into some entertainment news. We are running short on time, and I actually got to go cook some dinner tonight. I'm cooking up some tacos for the family tonight as I'm finishing up here in the studio. I'll be doing double duty. That's what we kind of do here. Disneyland. I should mention this real quick. Not Disneyland, Disney World. Disney World actually hit capacity every day of this long weekend that we were just finishing up. Every day, all reservations sold out as of like midweek last week. It's really getting crazy. I've been there a couple times in the past year, not to Disney World, but to Disneyland. Disneyland, I don't believe, sold out. The crowds there are just out of hand. And I understand the popularity, and I understand you want to let in as many people as possible, but it really takes away from the magic when you're just like, and you see some recent pictures of like Disney World and Disneyland, and it's just shoulder to shoulder people. It's like, how is this fun? You're losing kids. It's craziness. So I don't know how to fix that, but man, it's not fun going there anymore. Had a little bit of, little conflict here with Punk Rock Bowling and their club shows. Barstool Preachers, it's officially announced. I think I mentioned that on one of the last episodes, that they are playing a club show at Punk Rock Bowling. And I was like, that's the only one I got to prioritize going to. I was going to hit some other ones, but I was like, okay, no conflicts, no nothing else. And I wasn't anything that I was like, I have to go. Well, left alone, decided to announce a club show with Manic Hispanic at this year's Punk Rock Bowling. And of course, it's the same damn night as Barstool Preachers. So I'm going to try to hit both. I've been told by my good friend John that it would be possible to hit both. He might be hitting both. So as a Punk Rock Bowling rookie, I am going to follow his lead if he's going to do it. Otherwise, I'm not trying to do it myself. I'll just get lost, and I'll be like in some other, like, where is Left Alone? Who knows? All right, I want to give you a quick show recap from the weekend. I was out both Friday and Saturday. Got to check out the new knitting factory there in North Hollywood. Highly recommend. It's a cool little spot. The sound is great there. They've got a little balcony off. This is upstairs from the Federal. For those of you that are familiar with North Hollywood, Federal, it's got some great food as well, some great beers. So it's definitely a great opportunity. And we did this. Me and a few of the friends, we went and had dinner downstairs at the Federal, then went upstairs to the knitting factory. Got to enjoy Chaser, Ignite, Voodoo Glow Skulls, and Guttermouth. No offense to you, Guttermouth, but we did leave during Guttermouth, like one song in, because I see Guttermouth all the time, and I'm not a huge fan anymore. 30 years ago, Guttermouth, yeah. Now it's like, it's doing this all the time. So cool spot. Eric Butow actually filled in on bass for Chaser. Congratulations to Jesse. Jesse Stepinski of Chaser, who just had a child. It was funny because I saw Eric post this, and I'm good friends with both of them, and I didn't comment right away, but I went, oh my God, I hope Jesse's okay. And then like an hour later, I was like, oh yeah, he just had a kid, like a week or two ago. So he's probably like, and they had 3 shows. They did Friday, Saturday at South Bay Customs, which I also went out to. Pictures will be up on Instagram at SoCalSean from that show once I start getting through. I'm working through all these photos here, but got to shoot at South Bay Customs, which is also a great venue. So then Eric was pulling double duty that night because Fourth in Line also played on Saturday. So he literally played back-to-back sets, Fourth in Line and then Chaser. Chaser always kills it. Fourth in Line is fantastic. I have been a big Ignite fan for a long time, but hadn't seen them for like 20 years until less than a year ago. And ever since then, I keep catching them as much as I can. I've been listening to them like crazy. They do have, there's been a lot of back and forth on the new singer, Eli, versus their original singer, Zoli. I think Eli does a fantastic job. He's also an incredibly nice human being, and the sound is still fantastic. The vocals are fantastic. They had great sets. Thoroughly enjoyed all my time. And like I said, picks coming soon from Saturday, and probably some from Friday. I'd never been to Knitting Factory, and I don't like going into a place blind, although I did that with South Bay Customs to shoot 2:30 a few weeks ago. But since I was shooting Chaser and Fourth in Line and Ignite the next day, I knew I said, I'm just going to go enjoy. So took some phone pictures, but not with the good camera. The good camera photos will be coming from Saturday as I sort through everything and get those edited and posted. And for those of you not aware, Venomous Pinks, I think just today or yesterday, announced a little SoCal tour, multiple March shows around the Southern California area. You'll probably catch me at 1 or 2 of those shows when they make their way out here to Southern California. All right, that's going to do it. But before we go, don't forget to follow us on the social platforms, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Again, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Also, youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. And of course, my own personal Instagram, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean. And don't forget to bookmark SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Become a patron, pick up some merch, check out the exclusive content that only gets posted to the website. All right, we are going to be off next Sunday. Got a scheduling conflict, no big deal. We'll be back should be back the following week. So don't worry when you don't see a new episode popping up 7 days from now, 6 or 7 days from now. We will be back at it the following weekend as well. And since we're not having a show, make sure you come out and see. I don't know if it might be sold out, but I will be at Mad Caddies 2:30. Hooray for our side. Chase Long Beach, bunch of bands playing. March 4th down there at Garden Amp. So if you're there, look for me. I'll throw some stickers your way. I got to do another sticker order. I'm looking at my sticker piles here, and it's getting a little low, so I got to do one of those. All right, like I said, we won't be here next week, but we will be back 2 weeks from now. Same wall place, same wall time. And until then, this has been episode 131 of Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And remember, wall fans, common sensors, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you go, and especially no matter why you are doing it, always use common sense.